Making the environment around the dyslexic learner more suited to the way their brain works gives us a greater chance of helping them engage with learning material. It also impacts on how effective interventions can be for the dyslexic learner. When we're thinking about, how we can make the environment easier to look at, what we want to consider here is how to reduce glare and thinking about how information is presented to them, like if it's on a page or on the whiteboard. The purpose here is to make it easier for the learner to engage with the content by having it in a dyslexia-friendly format. Here's an example to show what we mean by dyslexia-friendly format. So on the left here is information that Well South put out over COVID-19. It was really good information, but our community couldn't easily engage with it. We redid it in a dyslexia-friendly format. What you'll find is that what works for dyslexics works better for everyone for engaging with this information. This is an example of a worksheet being made into a dyslexia-friendly format. So this format works on making it easier to engage with visually, as well as working with their dyslexic strengths and accommodating for their dyslexic challenges. So let's work through it. It has a name indicating what the worksheet is about, which is giving them a big picture. It has the language and symbols involved connected with this worksheet. So that's being explicit to help them make the connections. Then we give them an example to meet their big picture thinking as well. And if this example isn't enough, you may actually have to show this as a visual representation where you might have 16 dots divided into two groups. The number of questions being asked has been reduced, and they've also got space to create their own equations meeting their problem-solving strength. Doing their own also helps to cement their learning. The overall worksheet has a coloured background to reduce glare, and there is space around the printed information, so it's not feeling crowded. And there's no unnecessary pictures. So another thing with environment, we're thinking about how can we make it easier to hear? Since processing verbal information can be difficult, it helps if we follow the little and often guideline. Give information in little chunks and repeat it for them. One of the key things to help dyslexics is making sure they understand the instructions. Not understanding instructions is a significant barrier for engagement. So in summary, when you give them verbal information, little and often, and checking in for understanding. This checking in is done discreetly to minimize anxiety and shame. We want to think about how do I manage the amount of information given at one time. So it connects to how the information is presented, not just about how it looks, but also the quantity of information that is being presented. Dyslexic brains can go offline with having too much text on a page. Reading text can be hard and demanding on their brain. In the example of the worksheet, we reduced how much info was on the page. Another strategy is to cover up some of the information with a blank piece of paper. And it works well if we can get the student to do this so they're managing it themselves. And once again, for giving verbal information, it's following that little and often guideline again. How do I support them with visual aids? The purpose of this strategy is to support their poor ability to easily process verbal information and work with their visual-based strength. We do this by providing visual aids when giving verbal information. So if you're giving them verbal instructions, provide them in a written form as well, either on the board or on a piece of paper that they can have next to them. If it's next to them or on the board, it means they can refer back to them and check what the instructions are whenever they need to. Dyslexics relax when they know they have something they can refer back to and don't have to hold it in mind. Visual aids can be used with writing, where they can refer to spelling words, or for maths. Here's an example of the use of a visual aid. Having the visual aids for completing maths supports their short-term memory so they can concentrate on completing the worksheet and engage with the information you want them to learn. It's about thinking about reducing the barriers so they can better learn the content you give them. There's an example of a student taking a maths test to determine their knowledge. It was a verbal test. It was done within a certain time frame, and it was a list of questions. The dyslexic got out of sync and got the answers wrong. It was done as a whole class test. This process was testing their short-term memory and sequencing skills rather than their level of understanding of their maths knowledge. And we want to think about how we can give them more time. Giving them more time where possible, especially in activities that are demanding on their brain. Do it discreetly and just put it in place for them. If you ask them, they are unlikely to say they want the extra time. The language you use is based around supporting their brain, not the person. For example, you would say to the student, your brain needs more time to understand this information when it's in this format. And then we think about how can we make it easier for them to be in the classroom. Here we're stepping back into a bigger picture. How does the classroom look visually? How much information and writing is on the walls? Is it easy for them to locate this information? Is there order in the classroom? This is the same concept as having a tidy desk. If the external environment is tidy and ordered, it can impact on the dyslexic's ability to focus more easily. And again, it's not just dyslexics who benefit from this.